Hi there, and welcome back to another Spotlight special episode of ScaleUp Radio, the podcast inspired by the Entrepreneurial ScaleUp System and designed to make navigating our scale-up journeys that little bit easier by learning from others' experiences. I'm Kevin Brent, and today we bring back Sam Fenton-Elstone of Anything is Possible and put him in the spotlight at our ScaleUp Club, where we give other business owners the chance to ask Sam some of their questions. AIP is a company that's grown impressively to 70 people across several offices in just 6 years, and indeed they've added 20 people in the last year alone. And Sam shares how strategic long-term contracts have provided financial stability and enabled bold decisions. And we also explore their unique approach to hiring during the uncertain times of COVID-19, focusing on attitude over experience to build a resilient and adaptive culture, one of their keys to success that Sam cites. And discover how balancing autonomy with effective processes and embracing diverse perspective fuels their success and their collective intelligence. And make sure that you don't miss any future episodes of ScaleUp Radio by subscribing to us wherever you like to listen to your podcasts. Just search for ScaleUp Radio. And you can also nominate a guest for ScaleUp Radio if you know someone with an interesting scale-up story, and you can find out how in the show notes below. So for now, get ready for a really insightful conversation and Q&A on navigating growth and cultivating a thriving culture. And join us to find out how to make anything possible in your business too. I'm delighted to welcome Sam Fenton-Elstone. I interviewed Sam about a year ago, and his episode has become one of the most listened to episodes over that year. And Sam is co-founder with Mark, and he's the CEO of Anything is Possible, or AIP Media. And they're in the media, creative and technology space, which is a very competitive market space, as we probably know. But they've carved out a really strong position within it, and they've grown over the last 5 years, six-ish now, I think, from a standing start to around about 50 people, over 5 million in turnover, and with several offices, including one in South Africa. And what stood out really strongly for me was how the combination of a clear positioning strategy and focus on culture have really helped to drive that success. So I'll open the floor up to Sam if you'd like to introduce yourself, Sam, and over to you. Welcome to ScaleUp Club.
So hi everyone. So yeah, I'm Sam. So I founded Anything is Possible with my work husband. I didn't realize I was getting married when I founded the business. Effectively, you get married when you found a business with someone, Mark, and it's been an incredible journey. So that was back in 2018, in the olden days before COVID, right?
Yeah.
and who would have thought what we would have come across? But my background, I've always worked in advertising, and I wanted to create an agency that wasn't just going to be another agency out there. There's a lot of them. But something that could stand on its own 2 feet and challenge the way we work. So we're called Anything is Possible. We believe it so much we made it our brand. You know, the idea is that well, actually, you know, like, life is better when you remember anything is possible. But unfortunately, we kind of forget that when you're kids, you truly believe it. My daughter's 4, Eva, and her world's huge. She can achieve anything. You know, we've got builders in, and she's a little princess. She wears pink and she likes playing with dolls. Yet she says to me the other day, she's like, "Daddy, can I be a builder like Steve, who's like a classic Cockney builder?" And I'm like, "Of course, why not? Why can't you be?" Later on, she's talking to me about wanting to be a superhero. And I was like, of course, and your world's so big and varied, and then you become old and you become miserable and you start to make excuses for things and you start to say no to things and you rule things out. And I think that's a real sadness in life. It makes life poorer for it. And I think if you just capture that spirit of Anything is Possible and apply it to the world of work and to a business, actually, you can unlock creative solutions that I think are game changing. So what we do is we're an integrated agency. We provide creative services for brands. So that's helping them to tell their story, whether that be through their brand positioning or adverts, whatever that may be. And then we help them plan and buy media for those advertising campaigns and get those stories out there. And then the third element of how we help brands is through technology and data. So helping them develop the technology stacks that they need and the data infrastructure that they need to help them better understand their customers and deal with their customers in what is a digital first and ever complex world. So 6 years, we'll be 6 in on the 1st of June. We're now up to about 70 people now.
Right. Wow.
Got Brighton, which is where I am at the moment. It's our main office. We've got an office in London, in South Africa, which we opened last year. And then we, in about December last year, we made our first acquisition. So that enabled us to get open up in Manchester, which is through acquisition. So we've got about 12 people up there. And yeah, it's been a thrilling ride. It's it's been super, super exciting. Lots of ups and downs. You would have never predicted what we had to go through with COVID and all that sort of stuff. But fortunately, I think we've come out the other end stronger.
Fantastic. So, and some significant progress then since we spoke a year ago. By the way, if anybody's, as we're talking with Sam, if anybody's got any questions they'd like to put to Sam, please do put them in the chat, and Granger will coordinate those in a minute. I'd just like to tease out a couple of things first. So, from a strategic perspective, Sam, what do you think has really contributed to that success and enabled you to scale?
So there's probably three things I draw on. So firstly, the brand position and the idea and the philosophy is really a driver for the type of work that we do, the impact that we can make, and the brands that we can work with. And that's really, really important. We have to show clients that anything is possible. We have to challenge our clients to think in a different way and to move forward beyond what they've done before. And so all of what we do, be it culturally, be it how we organize ourselves, it has to enable that outcome. So that's really, really important because, we live off that reputation. We're still a relatively young business, and, we haven't got, we'll often compete with people who will have hundreds of people and huge clients and loads of experience. And we can't compete with that. So we have to compete with something else. And ours is our ability to remind them that anything is possible and to transform what they do. So that's really, really key. More pragmatically, what's worked for us. So the first one is giving ourselves a long-term runway. So this was a very deliberate approach when we started, which was that we were targeting specific sectors and clients that we knew we would be able to obtain multi-year contracts for.
Right.
So notably, that's in higher education, which we do a lot of work with. But that meant that when we founded the business in 2018, very quickly we built contracts up that were running over 3, 4, 5 years.
Okay.
And that's significant because it meant that we weren't living like hand to mouth, right? So it wasn't just like always chasing the next month's revenue. So, still now, it's still a key part of our strategy. So I've got contracted revenue until 2020, what year are we now? It's 2024. I've got it until like 2030. Our longest contract we've just won is 7 years.
Wow.
So obviously our revenue declines each year because it's contracted. So we replace that. But what that basically means is it gives you a sense of longevity and confidence to behave, I think, more strategically. Because I think that's a danger, right? It's when you're, kind of hustling for your next bit of revenue, it's hard to think long term. And if you're always thinking short term, then you kind of maybe are somewhat random over the long term. It isn't as impactful.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, there was another opportunity, I guess, which it all links back to being able to think like that. So when you operate in that kind of long-term horizon, you make decisions slightly differently. So the second thing that we did, which was really, really good, was during COVID. So we deliberately hired during COVID. So basically everybody was putting people on furlough or making people redundant. And because we had these long-term contracts, we looked at them and we said, well, actually, never will you see a HR market like this. This is our opportunity because there's so many good people who are looking for work. And there's so few organizations who are actually hiring. So if we look at that as an opportunity to swim against the tide and actually actively hire, we will get people that we wouldn't have been able to hire as quickly in a normal situation. So that's what we did. So we hired 20 people. And what that meant is that our capability as a business leveled up much more quickly than we would have anticipated in a normal horizon. So it's all about trying to give you the headspace to make decisions like that, which everything has risk, but it's about managing it, I think.
Brilliant. And number 3?
Did I say 3?
I think you did. I think we had the long-term runway, the hiring COVID. So, the idea of every crisis has an opportunity.
I'll stick it to.
You'll stick it to. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, no, fantastic. And of course, going back to the theme of value, that those long-term contracts, recurring revenue really helps to build the value of the business.
Yeah. I mean, they come at a cost, right? Because winning a contract for that time, you lock in pricing, right? So you have to deal with inflationary pressure on your costs whilst your revenue is locked. So you want to find balance in a business, because if you have too much of that, then it's quite difficult to optimize, because you'll see your costs rise and then there's very little you can do about your revenue. So it's not 100% strategy, but it's about balance. So you can optimize. It gives you long-term security, but you still need to find ways to make sure you can optimize margin.
Excellent, good. And I know from our conversation before that the people side of the business, the culture side, is very important to you. So do you want to just tell us a couple of things around that's helped with your success? Yeah,
so people we're an agency, so effectively when we've not all been replaced by AI yet, so we are a people business, right? So the first thing is recruitment is the single biggest driver or brake on growth. So get it right, then it accelerates, and get it wrong, it can really slow you down. And the cost of recruitment is really, really high. Yeah, it takes a lot of time. So some mistakes we probably made early on actually was overvaluing experience. And I think it's probably a little bit of an immaturity of us as a business, but basically if a candidate had worked at a big agency that we respected, a big famous agency, we felt that was exactly what we needed. And it's not to say that it isn't, but really what we found over time is that attitude and capability is a better predictor for success than where they've worked. Yeah. But because we were young upstarts, we wanted to have someone who worked at the big agencies and the things that we respected. So we probably overvalued that. So actually now we've changed that. So we put a lot of time into recruiting possibilists. So we call ourselves possibilists, which, every agency has to have some sort of name. Yeah. But the idea is that a pessimist would say that their glass is half empty. An optimist would say it's half full. Possibilist just fills it right up to the top. And the kind of what that's supposed to kind of summarize is someone who's able to see a better future, but also do something about it. So, it's, I'll often say, it's easy to talk a good game. Everyone's probably gone down the pub and said, oh, if I could do this, I could do it so much better after a couple of beers, but actually doing it is really, really difficult. So trying to find those possibilists is the most important thing. And that could mean that it's any role, right? It could be a junior role in their first job, or it could be someone coming in at board level. But we need to make sure that they've got that attitude, because if they don't, it's very difficult in this organization, because the organization's moving at speed. There are challenges with that. If we're growing at the rate we're growing, you have to be very autonomous and able to deal with uncertainty. And uncertainty isn't something that everyone can deal with particularly well. Some people are more adept at it than others. It can be quite crippling, actually, if you're not kind of into that isn't a strength of yours, and that's a concern. So recruitment is really, really important. One of the things that if we're going to embody the spirit of anything as possible, then learning and development is key. And so we invest considerably more than an organization of our size normally would in that, because our view is that it's like a muscle memory, right? So if you're learning, you're more open-minded, you're open to new ideas. And if you're open to new ideas, then it's much more easy to see the world through the lens that anything is possible. When you're closed-minded, actually, by default, nothing is possible, unless you know it already. So that's really, really important. So they're the biggest, I think, things. Right. Is recruitment and making sure people continue with L&D.
Very good. And I've got one more question before we open up to the floor. Really, is and how do you've scaled rapidly. You've added 20 people just in the last year, partly through acquisition, but even in 5 years, scaling to 50 people, pretty going some. And you said before, you're young guys when you started. How have you managed that strategy execution gap? How have you managed to keep control of it and not let things get away from you?
Yes, it's always tricky. I liken it to like a bit of a pendulum. So like when there was 5 of us around a desk, it was super easy because everyone's on the same page and communication's easy and we're all in it together. But you're all doing everything. So it is quite chaotic, but because the team's small enough, it's fine. Then when the team gets bigger, the complexity increases. So you start to turn to process to try and resolve that. The problem with process is that by its nature, it reduces autonomy and it can limit ideas, which if you're trying to create a business where anything is possible, the more process you have could be counterintuitive. So, so you kind of spend it and go, oh God, like we need to fix this. Let's build a process for it. And I think naturally people, when they look at processes, people love going into a lot of detail. But actually, I think the thing I've learned is that you need to minimize the detail. So you need to create processes which are effectively like, guides, a bit like when you're putting the sides up when you're bowling. It needs to guide you, but it shouldn't restrict your autonomy and creative decision making within that. So you create as much process. How can I phrase this? As much process that is needed to maintain operational excellence, but not so much that you limit and stifle creativity and autonomy. And that's hard because you never quite know what you're doing. So generally, I think we kind of pendulum between them, go, oh, we've gone a bit too far here. We now need to make sure that people can be more autonomous. Because I think to build a great business, what you need is to enable as many people to make great decisions as quickly as possible. So decisions can't ladder up to me. I'll be a bottleneck for it. And also I'm only just one perspective. So I can only see the world through my eyes, right? Other people have a different perspective. And there's a great book called Rebel Ideas by Matthew Said, which kind of influences how we think. But the power of diverse perspectives enables collective intelligence. You want people to see the world differently from you, and you want them to make decisions within a shared value base. So overly processed organizations don't allow for that, and therefore I think limit your ability to scale quickly and limit your ability to develop your products and process and approach.
Brilliant.
Sort of, so.
Love it. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely love that. Fantastic. Well, thank you. Granger, how are we doing on any questions from the audience?
Yeah, sure. Rebel Ideas, brilliant book. Highly recommend it. Some fantastic thoughts and systems in there. And I fully appreciate the pendulum idea there, Sam. That was a really good analogy. Thank you. So we've got one from Steve from AES. There's a few little questions in here. So first of all, he says, are you hybrid working or are you full-time in the offices?
So we're hybrid. So we tend to, when we started the business, we have an anywhere as possible policy. And that was before it was cool, right? It's back in the old days, before COVID. Our thing is work where you do your best work. Now, generally, we recommend for most of the roles in the business, that's 3 days a week in the office. But for some roles, it's just not that. Particularly, say someone in finance, it might be 1 day a week. For other people, it might be more. We tend to find that we have a different. So London and Manchester, they go in 2 to 3 days a week. Brighton, a lot of people are in 5 days a week because we've got a roof terrace and you can walk to work and it's all particularly lovely. So, but hybrid works for us. Okay.
So building on that then is he then asks, you've got 3 different cities you're in and even different continents, Yeah. So is there working cultures different and how do you manage those?
So we want to have local flavors of a global culture, if that makes sense. So we want it to be clearly anything is possible, but for it to be flexible within those areas. So I think every office has their own take on it, but we've been pretty good at being consistent and it kind of comes back to alignment. So, if we look at South Africa, for example, I think we've got about 7 people there. I mean, it's been incredible, really. They don't feel like they are in another, hemisphere. They feel like they're part of it. And that's the recruitment of that was the most important part. And it took a long time to do that. But once you get the right people in, they buy into the culture. So it's worked out well. We went to South Africa because the time zone is the same, which meant that the complexity of international offices is not that complex for us at the moment. And also culturally it works. We'll see what happens when we launch in the US and Asia, how like more thought will need to go into that, I think, to make sure that we can maintain that consistency.
Brilliant. A question from Grant. How do you find the headspace to make good decisions?
I don't know. So you don't know at the time, you don't know if they were good decisions. I mean, the first thing is that any decision is better than no decision. That's the key thing, because I think we avoid decisions generally because of the fear of making the wrong one. So that's the thing I've come to terms with. I still don't like making the wrong decisions, but generally, if you make them quick enough, it helps. But yeah, we have a good board around us, and we give ourselves good headspace internally to meet regularly, and that enables us to I think air our views and kind of challenge them a little bit. But you know, like we make plenty of wrong decisions as well. So just don't be afraid to make decisions, I think.
Brilliant, thank you. Question from Helen Bauer. I've got lots coming in now, Kevin, so you need to just keep me on time.
And what we might need to do is send some of those questions to Sam afterwards for him to respond after.
Yeah, brilliant. So question from Helen. How do you encourage your staff to make decisions? My team don't like taking responsibility for decisions. They seem to bring everything to me to sign off.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's a truth. I mean, that is a truth that exists because decision making is hard. You know, generally, I mean, to be honest, I make decisions all day. So when I get home, I can't even order a takeaway curry. I can't choose what I want because I'm overwhelmed with it. So it's ongoing. Again, I keep saying that the right type of attitude is the most important predictor for success. That's kind of when I was talking about how we overvalued experience. The people who are going to make the decisions generally share a relationship with uncertainty, a relationship with accountability, which means that they're not scared to make that decision. But it's never perfect. We're always optimizing it. You know, there's still a tendency to push things up, you know, because you remove responsibility, you remove the risk of failure. You know, it's a classic thing of creating a culture where failure is celebrated. I think there's an element of truth in that, but it's just ongoing. You've got to keep reinforcing it. L&D, creating a positive reinforcement culture and divesting those decisions as much as possible. That's the thing that limits, I think, founders is you keep everything to yourself, right? So you don't delegate stuff because it's hard to do that. And so, but it is, if you can manage it, I think that's what unlocks the growth.
Brilliant. Maybe one more question, Granger, and then we'll...
Super. So I'm going to combine these two questions because they're similar-ish. So it's around about how you win business because people are interested in these really big, massive contracts and the time. And on average, how long does that take? And do you have any thoughts or advice on the process?
Yeah. So we have three routes for winning business. So our marketing efforts are designed to deliver inbound leads. So in that, it's around our branding, our content output, events, awards. Then we have a focus on publicly published tenders in our sector. So brands or organizations that are putting out there via various portals that they're looking to procure agency support. And they're the ones that typically will be multi-year. You can spend a lot of time and money getting those wrong. And that's, so you'll hear too, kind of, I think if you ask in our sector, what do people think of public tenders? Some people love them and some people hate them. We'll say, don't do that, you'll just waste loads of money. The thing is, you've got to get good at them, and we got good at them quite early on, which meant that we kind of can make those work, but you've got to be really smart about it. And then the third one is kind of, we have a new business team that, you know, we do a lot of outbound actually, which works really, really well. I was always quite skeptical of that, but it's worked amazingly well where we have outbound campaigns. We offer value as the first point of contact, and then build those long-term relationships. In terms of how long it takes, I think, you know, we won a big contract in December with the Department of Culture, Media and Sport, and that was probably 9 months of work to get that over the line. We track how much we spent. We spent, a lot of time and money on that. So it's a long-term thing. So you have to be very considered on it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Sam.
That's fantastic.
Really, really interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you very much indeed, Sam. Really appreciate that. I hope you enjoyed that discussion, and if you're building and scaling your own business, you might well be interested in our book, The Entrepreneurial ScaleUp System. And it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a practical handbook around scaling a business in a structured way. And you can order a copy on all your favorite online retailers, including an audio version, or you can find it and other supporting resources on our website, www.esusgroup.co.uk. That's esusgroup.co.uk, which is esusgroup.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.